Hello, hello, everyone. How is everybody doing today?
Good.
Good, good. Feel free to turn your cameras on so I can see your awesome faces. I like to know I'm talking to actual people around here when I can. And you can feel free to unmute yourself when you have a question. But in general, my esteemed colleague, Miss Chloe Long, will be making sure that everyone is muted so we don't get a lot of background noise and that we can make sure that people can hear. According, a lot of times stuff is amplified over the microphone. I know that whenever I've used my phone in my car, especially like when I'm talking to my mother, she'll like, what is that loud noise? And it's usually like my turn signal. And it's it's just clicking, but it amplifies through the phone. So we like to make sure that everybody's on mute so everybody can hear. And but we want to thank you guys for coming and showing up today. And welcome aboard with the DealDriven app. I want to show you a few things with the app so you can utilize it to its fullest and make sure you get all the aspects out of it that you want. So welcome. Just want to give everybody a chance to come on in. It's 2 o'clock. I'll give people just another minute or two, and then we are going to get started. But hopefully you guys have already been using the app and kind of playing around with it, seeing the different features. It has a ton of features. I love it. I have been using it now for several years, and it's one of my primary apps that I use when I'm doing my investing. And so, again, want to thank everybody for showing up today. Thank you for all of you that have turned your cameras on so I can see your awesome faces. And I see, who do I see? I see Miss Joyce there with an incredible smile. So thank you again for sure. It's not taken away from anybody else's smile, but Miss Joyce's smile is awesome. And so I love that outfit there with the purple in your top there. My wife's favorite color is purple, and so I'm always buying purple things for her. But welcome, welcome. So giving an opportunity for everybody to hop on here. But as they are hopping on, I'm going to introduce myself real quick. My name is Stephan Roberts. I've been with Partner Driven for a few years now, but I have been doing real estate investing for a little over 10 years now. I operate out of the Atlanta, Georgia area, and I am here today with my esteemed colleague, Miss Chloe Long. She is my backup today to make sure we get questions answered, make sure we share different links and things like that in the chat. So a lot of times if there's things that you need or resources that we may be sharing, we're going to put it in the chat so you have the opportunity to take a look at it, and it's easier to copy and paste right out of the chat. But like I said, I have been wholesaling for a few years now. I've done lots of deals here in the Atlanta area, and it's my bread and butter. I tell people all the time, I've expanded out and done a few other things. I've done some subject to deals. I've done some short sales
Hello.
and things like that. How's it going,
Hello.
Tom? How you doing? I can hear your
Hello.
voice there. I'm gonna mute you there. And so, but I've done a few different things here in the investment world, but my primary focus has always been wholesaling. Just completed another deal a couple of weeks ago. Got another deal that is currently under contract, and I've got 2 other deals that I've got to do some research on right now that I'm looking to try to get completed. So I am an active real estate investor, and so I can answer a lot of questions for you. Don't know everything about everything, but I know a lot about a little. So I always want to make sure I'm here and answer questions for you the best I can. But we are here today to go over the DealDriven app. And so I want to make sure I answer any questions that you might have. Many of you may be still in your 7-day free trial on the app. And if you, and I wanted to make sure that you're taking advantage of that trial time to use the app as much as possible. I'll kind of let you know that when I was doing some of my driving for dollars as one of my marketing strategies, one of the main things that I struggled with was I had a little notepad that I would go around. I'd not write down the addresses. I take pictures of the property, but then when I got home, I had to remember which pictures went with which addresses and try to coordinate all of that. Then I still had to try to go and look up information to try to find out the contact information for the sellers of those properties and match it all up together and keep it all organized. When I found out about the DealDriven app, I was sold instantly because I knew that how much it could help me in what I was doing. And so now while I'm out and even when I'm out and about with my wife, we might go somewhere to see a property. I end up going in, I can look up the property right in the app. I can save the property in a list. I can take pictures of the property, save that in the contact for the list, and I can even do skip tracing with the property right there, all in the app in real time. So even while I'm out in front of the property, if I wanted to, I could end up giving a call to the seller right there in front of the house. So it's very efficient. It's it's an awesome app to use. And I do use it very regularly, especially for driving for dollars. It's one of the easiest ones that I've seen on the market. So, but I do want to have a little housekeeping here. I want to make sure I answer any questions that anybody may have concerning the app before I just go and start going over some of the features of the app. So if you have some specific questions, please feel free to ask the question. What you can do is raise your Zoom hand. If you go down to the bottom of your Zoom screen, you will see a little reactions button. It looks like a little smiley face with a plus sign in the side of their head. You click on that button, it'll give you the option to raise your Zoom hand. If you raise your hand, I'll take your questions in the order that your hands were raised and make sure I do my best to answer those questions for you. And so if anybody has a question, feel free to raise your Zoom hand. Otherwise, I am going to go ahead and open up the app and go over a few of the features on there. I saw someone named Tony just raising. Was that an accident or did you actually have a question, Tony? You're gonna have to unmute yourself if you have a question. Okay, all right, I do have Renee Hickman has her hand up. And so Renee, you got a question for us real quick? You need to unmute yourself in order to
I thought somebody, I'm sorry, I thought that somebody had raised their hand and they were going to speak. Do I have that right?
Nope, they put their hand back down, so and I gave them a chance to say something, but they didn't.
Okay, I just want to see if we'll have some time towards the end, maybe, to like go over a deal. I had a little trouble last week. We did walk through one, but okay. I didn't find a good comparable, and I want to make sure that I'm looking at it correctly.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, I'll make sure we get, so make sure to raise your hand again. I'll make sure the last 20 minutes or so, we can go over a deal.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, okay, you're very welcome. All right, Shannon, you got your hand up. You got a question for us real quick?
Hi, Stephan. Yeah,
hey.
You kind of mentioned something that might answer a question I had. Hi, Stephan. You mentioned how you're able to use the software to put the pictures of the house right in the software. And I noticed, you know, I'm a partner that Partner Driven requests that you have all the pictures in a file. Is there a way to use the software to organize that? When you're does it put them in a file when you put them on there? How do you do that?
Well, they put them in the contact that you put them in. So when you have the contact, there is an option to add pictures. I'll make sure I go over that with you when I start showing some of the features in the app, but all those pictures will be in that contact. So let's say you're looking at a property at 123 Main Street. When it gives you an option to add additional pictures, because you can pull up a picture like the Google Street View picture. You can add that to the file, but then it also has an option that says add additional add additional pictures. And then you can click on that and then add a picture on there and just take a picture and add it on there, or you can upload a picture in there. So either way that you choose, but all of those pictures will be in that record. So you don't have to organize, they're already organized. They're already in the record that are associated with the address of that property.
So that would count as submitting a file with the pictures versus individual pictures?
No, I see what you're saying. No, that's different. That's different. You're talking about when you're at like an appointment and you're taking pictures of the property that you're going to upload into like Dropbox or things like that to submit a deal with us. That's a little bit different. This is for your own personal records for your
Okay.
properties when you're going around, because you may just take an outside picture. You've heard me talking on some of the calls before, and I mentioned the time when I had a lead on a property, and there was the property, and on Google, it had the Google Street View of the property, and the house was right there. But when I actually went out to the property, there was no property. It was a slab, because the house had burned down. And so sometimes you want to take a current picture to show what the current status of a particular property is. And so you can't just go off of the online things. And so that's why you may want to take a picture or two when you're at the property and have that associated with that particular address for your records. Okay.
Okay, so somewhere I need training too on how to put up the other pictures in a file.
Absolutely. And make sure you, because you're one of our partner-driven partners, you can always talk with our coaches or get on the coaches corner, and they can walk you through how to upload those pictures for you. Okay.
Hey, thanks, Stephan.
You're very welcome, Shannon. All right. Kwame, you got a quick question for us?
Yes, I do. How are you, Stephan?
Doing fantastic.
I'm trying to see about warehouse spacing.
Okay.
I don't know if we do commercial, if you finance commercial, but I found a gem.
All right. Yes. Currently, partner driven. If you're talking about being a partner with partner driven, we don't do commercial. So we only do residential, only up to 4 units, because anything above 4 units is also considered commercial as well. So we only do 4 units or below is what we currently look at. Now, I will say this: if you are a partner with us, you can always focus on reaching out to the coaches or to Peter. I can't really make you any promises because we don't really do commercial, but a deal is a deal. And if it's something that he thinks that Peter might be interested in pushing forward on, it doesn't hurt to ask. The worst you can say is no. If you don't ask, the answer's automatically no. So you can check and see. I'm just making sure you're aware that in general, we don't do commercial on there. That's a whole different entity. It takes a little bit different type of work to work on a commercial deal. Okay.
The real reason I'm asking is because I was involved in commercial warehouse space in Mount Dora, Florida.
Okay.
And it's steel metal buildings that go up quick, pour the slab, throw it together. They were selling units for $200,000 per unit, and it yielded 50.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't cost but $100,000 a building. I'm like, why aren't we?
Well, I will say this. I'll put it this way, and I've made this comment to people many times. There is not a shortage of ways to make money in real estate. Okay, there's tons of different ways. There's warehouses, there's storage facilities, there's mobile home parks, there's mortgage notes, there's tax liens, there's a plethora of ways to make money in real estate investing. We can't tackle everything. Okay, we kind of stay in our lane. That's why I mentioned at the very beginning of this, I mentioned the fact that I do wholesaling. And when I talk to people, a lot of times people ask me, well, I do wholesaling. That's my sweet spot. Now, doesn't mean I don't expand out and start to, try a few other things, but my bread and butter is wholesaling. With partner driven, their bread and butter is residential properties. They're not doing industrial things. They're not doing commercial stuff. They're not doing hotels and apartment complexes. That's not what they're doing currently. Now, I'm not saying we might not do that in the future, but right now, that's not what we're doing. And so, because I even know an investor, when doing some of my investor networking meetings, I know a guy that focuses only on parking decks. He works with a company that invests in parking lots, and there's a whole lot of money in parking lots.
Yes, there is.
So there's lots of different ways to make money in real estate. But what happens, the challenge a lot of times is that a lot of people that start off with partner driven and with the DealDriven app are new investors. And it's too easy for a new investor, as I call it, getting the squirrel syndrome. They go after every shiny object, because of the fact you can make money in all these different things that we talk about, but you got to focus on something, because otherwise you're going to be bouncing around to all these different things for every new shiny object that's out there. So all I'm saying is, whatever your passion is, whichever strategy you want to go with, focus on that, get it down, get good at it. That's why I say, like, I can do wholesaling in my sleep. I've been doing this for over 10 years now, and I know I know what the next steps are. I know what things I need to do. I can adjust accordingly when the unknown comes up, because I've been doing it so long. Can't say the same thing if I were looking at, say, like I said, mortgage notes or, apartment complexes or whatever, investing in that. And it's a different strategy. And so you got to know the ins and outs of the particular strategy that you want to go. So right now, what we try to focus on is helping people to do the basics, learn the foundational stuff, and then expand from there. And we support people all the time, say, hey, build your network, because we're a great resource. Partner Driven is a fantastic resource to have in your overall tool belt. But it's just like if you had an actual tool belt and we were the best drill that you could ever have and own in your lifetime. But what if you needed a saw? Having the best drill doesn't really help you. And that, it doesn't mean you get rid of your drill, because you got a phenomenal drill. But you might also want to get a saw. You might want to go get a hammer also. And so these are things to expand on. But when you're first starting, you got to start off with some tool. If you went and got one wrench, that was a 5/8 wrench, and then one screwdriver, and get a wrench set first. Get all the wrenches that you need, instead of getting piecemeal here and there. So that's what I say. Be focused. Be focused. Get something, whatever that may be for you, because everybody's investment horizon is different. Okay?
Now,
so you need to find out what's good for you.
May I ask you one last question? You're proficient in wholesaling.
Yep.
I'm not familiar with the term wholesaling. I'm a contractor.
Okay.
So I'd like to know what is really involved in wholesaling, because I'm just getting started in this. I know how to flip houses, fix them up, sell them, but I'm trying to get the terminology correct.
Fantastic question. And that is a great question to ask, because a lot of times people may talk to you about certain terminology, and you might be like, okay, what is that? And it might be something that you're totally familiar with. They just happen to name it something different. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but wholesaling is real basic, and I can give you the real basic. All wholesaling is, you operate as the middleman. That's it. Okay. You've seen the signs on the side of the road to say, like, I buy houses and stuff like that.
Correct.
That's all you're putting a property under contract. You are operating as the buyer to buy a house. Now, anybody that's ever done a real estate transaction knows that the moment you put a property under contract to buy it, you don't buy it that same day. It's not like buying something out of Walmart or on Amazon. You go under contract, but then there's a future date of when this transaction actually takes place. Okay. Mm-hmm. So between the time you put it under contract to when you actually close on it, during that time, you are looking to find another investor who is going to buy the property from you for a fee. So an example, let's say you have a house for sale. I say, Kwame, I'll buy your house for $100,000. You say, yes, I'll sell it to you for $100,000. Then I go and I meet somebody like Ron or Adam or Ed, and I say, hey, I got a property here. Were any of you interested in buying this property from me for $110,000? And they look at it, and one of them said, yes, I'll buy it from you for $110,000. Well, that $10,000 spread is what I make in the deal. So I'm basically allowing that investor to stand in my shoes and buy that property for a fee. So in essence, I'm technically not selling the property. I'm selling the paper, the contract is what I'm selling to them. Okay, make sense?
Okay, makes very good sense.
Cool.
Thank you.
And so you're very welcome. Thank you for the awesome questions. I think, Melissa, did you have your hand up? Did you have something? I think I saw your hand earlier and might have missed you real quick. I just want to make sure I get the initial questions out of the way.
Yes, how you doing?
Doing great.
My question is that I'm trying to do what you just talked about.
Okay.
The wholesaling part.
Awesome.
Okay, and I have a couple of leads going on. Okay. And also I was wondering, so like the MLS system, Now I was thinking about getting into partner driven.
Okay.
Do they do properties on the MLS?
Great question. Great question. As a general rule, the answer is no. Now,
Okay.
most of the time, the real answer, and I've said this many times, the real answer for most real estate investing questions is it depends. And so, but a lot of people don't like that answer because it's too iffy on there. But that's the reality. So many deals, one deal is different than another. That's just like saying, if I had a house to sell you for $1 million, would you buy it? And you might think, no, I don't have $1 million in my bank account. But if you found out more information, and I said, well, you know what, I'm moving overseas. I don't really care about this house. It's worth $1 million, but I'll let you buy it from me for $500 a month, and for the next, 90 years. That's a whole different story. Okay. It's still the same $1 million house, but under the right conditions, yeah, I'll buy $1 million house. And so it depends. There's more information. You can't just go off of the flat information. But as a general rule, no, we don't go off of MLS listings, primarily because of the fact that you usually don't get the best deals off of the MLS. And that's because everybody sees them. Okay. What we're trying to make sure we train our partners to do is learn how to go direct to the seller. That's when you get the best deals. Because usually that seller is only going to be talking to you. Even if they've been approached by a few other investors, once they've decided to start talking to you, the average person is not shopping around and having networking events and talking to a bunch of different investors and all that. They started talking to you for whatever reason. You were able to build a rapport with them. They're talking to you. So until you no longer can fit the criteria to move forward with the deal, all they're doing is talking with you. And so you have more of their ear to be able to negotiate the terms of that deal a lot better. When something's on the MLS, everybody in the world sees that. Literally, everybody in the world sees that. Okay. And then you're also competing against the hedge funds and investing groups that have bots that scour the MLS. And so what you have to ask yourself is that if all these different things, the hedge funds, the investors, the bots, and all this have passed on this deal so far, but you see it, why is it a deal for you, but it's not a deal for anybody else that's seen it up there? Now, does that mean it's impossible to find a deal on the MLS? No, that is not what I'm saying, because I have personally done some wholesale deals on deals that were on the MLS, but it's rare. I could not run my business by operating with deals that are on the MLS. If I find the occasional one here or there, that's great. But in general, I go direct to seller, and I have different marketing tools. And this is one of the reasons why you can use the DealDriven app to do some marketing things to find those particular sellers. Okay.
Well, I came across one address that was on the MLS and also it's in DealDriven.
Okay.
Now, how do I do that? Because
now I will say this: it's never bad to ask. Just like I mentioned to Kwame, you can check it and ask. There's no reason to that, because all you can get is a no or that it doesn't work out. But I don't want you to spend a ton of time going there. What happens too often is, especially with new investors, they get fixated on a particular property. That this has to be a deal. No, I look at stuff at volume. I move through stuff. I talk to people. If it's kind of falling in place, great. I'll talk to you more. If it's not, have a wonderful day. I'll check with you at a later time. I got to keep it moving, because the more time I spend on this one deal trying to make it a deal, the less time I have to talk to the people that are looking for my services and who need me, because I can't be everywhere all the time. So if it doesn't fit, okay, they go into my follow-up. Okay, I'll check with you in a month and see if it still fits. And then now don't abandon them totally, because now the other aspect is that too many people, they talk to people that are one and done. They talk to them, and if it's not a fit, they abandon it and never revisit it ever again. And they miss out on some follow-up deals, because a no today doesn't mean a no tomorrow. Right. And so just because it's not working out today doesn't mean you shouldn't revisit it. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I have a couple more. I
want to get to a few more people, and I do still need to get to the app to kind of go through a few things on there. So I'll give you an opportunity to ask another question a little bit later. Okay.
All right. That's fine.
All right, David, you're going to be our last question until we get to the app, and then I'll go through a few things. What you got for us today?
Yes, Mr. Stephan, I'm looking at something on for sale by owner.
Okay.
And he says he can show it, and so can his real estate agent show it.
Okay.
And he says he's willing to pay the commissions. Is that a yay or a nay?
As a general rule, that's still going to be a no, because that really still falls in line with what Melissa said. Because if there's an agent involved, even if it's not on the MLS, the issue is not just because it's on the MLS, but the issue is also still that an agent is involved in it. And a lot of agents, and no offense to the agents that might be on this call, but a lot of agents don't actually know a whole lot about real estate investing. Okay, because agents aren't usually taught real estate investing in their training. They're taught about the contract and what needs to happen. Usually once they get their license, if they park their license under a broker who is familiar with doing investing and dealing with investors, that broker will usually train them on how to deal with investors and how to do real estate investing. But as a general rule, someone just getting their license normally does not know anything about real estate investing. And we often try to do things in a creative manner. And a lot of agents usually shake their head to that because it throws them for a loop, because all they're really trying to figure out, okay, how can I put it on this contract, which is the state contract, and how can I get paid on it? You know, and unless you're savvy enough to work through all of the nuances of that, I would just say stay away from it. And you can always put in an offer. If you've got an offer and if they say yes to your offer, then we can revisit it and see how we can see if we can make it work. But as a general rule, don't go through agents on an investment side of things. We normally do not use agents for the acquisition of properties. We do use agents for the disposition of properties, meaning when we're selling properties. Because like if we do a fix and flip and we renovate it, yes, by all means, we want to use that agent to list it and sell it so we get as many eyes on it as possible, so we can potentially get the best price we can possibly get for it. And even sometimes on the wholesale side of things, we're likely going to list that property on the wholesale side, again, to get as many eyes on the property as possible. But on the buy side, I usually stay away from ones that they've got an agent involved in it. But still, it's always, now I know, David, you're part of the partner-driven family as well. If you got a deal and the numbers look good, talk to one of the coaches about it and let's see if it's something that we need to pursue. Okay.
Bob has been working for me, and I'm going to request a contract because my appointment is in 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and request it and go ahead and let's see what we can do.
I asked Bob, since I'm not part of the creative,
Okay.
would he be willing to kind of like joint venture on something? And he says, let's see what we could do.
Yeah. Again, like I mentioned to Melissa, the answer usually is it depends. So let's see a little bit more information about the deal, and then let's see if about the lead, and then let's see if we can make it a deal. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Fantastic.
Stephan,
Just
a quick question regarding David's question. Does he have a for sale by owner, or is it listed by a company called for sale by owner? They do have a company up in DMV like that.
Gotcha. David, is this a for sale by owner, or do you know if it's a company called for sale by owner?
No, it's for sale. I got on the for sale by owner website. And he said that he was allowed to show it, as well as the way I understood what it was either he could sell it or the agent could sell it.
Okay. All right.
Either way.
Cool. I just don't want to take up too much because I do want to make sure I get a time to go over the app with a lot of folks that are coming on here to ask about the app. So on that, make sure you talk to one of the coaches, give them a little bit more information. Go ahead and request the contract for it, but give them a little bit more information, and then let's see if it's something that we can pursue. Okay?
Okay, thanks, Stephan.
Fantastic. Yep, absolutely. All right. So yeah, I didn't want to take up too much more time. We're already about halfway through, and I want to make sure that I show you guys some of the features of the app to make sure that you are utilizing it. Now, a couple of things. I use the app both on my computer and on my cell phone. Now, if you've got an Android phone, the app is in the Google Play Store, so you can download the app out of the Google Play Store. If you've got an iPhone, it's not in the Apple Play Store just yet, but what most of my Apple iPhone user friends have done is that because it's a web-based app, they just usually pull it up through their web browser on their phone, and then just save the icon onto their phone. It's kind of like a shortcut thing to the app. So that way, in essence, you're almost kind of creating your own app on your phone. So you open it up in the browser, create the shortcut link, and save that shortcut on your phone. So then all you have to do is tap that shortcut icon, and it'll go right to the app anytime. Okay, so you can always use it on your phone. You can always use it on your computer as well. I'm going to open it up right now on my computer. And let me share this. All right, and actually, I'm going to log out first and log back in so you guys can see this. All right, so this is when you go to the app, which is just app.dealdriven.com on your computer. This will be your login screen, and you just go in and log in, and then it'll open up your dashboard for you. And then when you come in here to your dashboard, you've got several different options here. So the main thing that you're going to be doing, really kind of two-pronged, you're going to be analyzing any deals that you come across, like I mentioned, when you're doing driving for dollars and you come across a property, but also you're going to be pulling lists so that you can find some properties to make some phone calls to. And so when you pull lists, what you're going to do is you're going to go to your search for property leads nationwide using search filters. You can go to the box that's right here, or you can also go on the little magnifying glass icon up in the upper left-hand side. Both of them go to the exact same place, okay? But when you click on it, it'll take you to your search area. Now, once you go in here, you're going to need to select an area to search. So you can go by an address, the state, county, zip code. Most people I know usually will put either a city and state or a zip code in here. So let's say, for example, we use, let's see, I'll use Dallas, Texas. Just first thing that came to mind. So there we go, Dallas, Texas. All right, so when you pick a state, excuse me, a city, it's going to come in here and you will see the map of the address of the area that you're looking for, okay? It defaults to a 20-mile radius, but you can adjust this. So you can go down as little as 0, as much as 50. But usually a 20-mile radius is a good place to start on here. Now, once you get a little more savvy or trying to target some more specific areas, you can also go to this section here that says draw polygon. So instead of the search radius, you can go to draw polygon if you want to. And when you do the draw polygon, you just kind of go over the area that you are interested in searching. And let's say, for example, we just want to look at this area here. This place is called Deep Ellum here in Dallas, Texas. Then when I go to draw polygon, all I have to do is click on the outskirts of that area, and it draws around that. So then when I do my search and I say done drawing search area and I search, it's only going to search within that area that I've selected on here. This is very helpful when you want a certain area of town, a certain neighborhood, maybe even a certain block. Maybe you're in a really dense area, a congested area, and you just want to target some properties in a particular area. Well, you can draw around that area on the map and select just that section, okay? But when you first start, what we're going to do is select the search radius, and we're going to do this 20-mile radius here. Now, on that 20-mile radius here in Dallas, Texas, you see that it shows over here on the side that it's found over 10,000 particular properties that could potentially be leads. That's way too much to target right at the very beginning. So we're going to want to narrow that down some. So we're going to pick a few filtering items in order to narrow that down. So on the bottom of the map, you've got continue to search, to continue to select search type. You just click on that button and it takes you to your search criteria. Now you're going to have a few, what I refer to as hot buttons up here. These are ones that are just predefined search criteria. So they've already selected some of these different search criteria in here for these hot buttons. So if it's something that kind of fit that, you're just looking for any high equity properties in there, you don't have to go and select any of these other filters items. You can just click that hot button and it'll put those criteria in there, and then you can go to show results. Okay. But I always like to do my own manual search criteria. Now, understand what you're looking for in these leads. You're looking for people that are more likely to be people that want to sell their property, potentially even at a discount, or dealing with investors. Now, in the old days, back when there were phone books, and I know maybe if we got any millennials on here on the phone, they may not even know what a phone book is, but back when there were phone books and investors were pre-internet time, investors literally would just go in, open up the phone book, and start making phone calls, because they knew eventually they would run into somebody that wanted to sell their property. So it was just a matter of the numbers. Now, we don't want to have to do all of that phone calling unnecessarily. So what we want to try to do is find that group or that or those individuals that have a higher percentage of wanting to sell their property. Okay. So one of the things I talk about is that any property that is out in existence costs people money. Every single property costs somebody some money. Okay. Now, if it's the property that you live in, then you're offsetting that cost by the benefit of living in the house. Okay. So it's still costing you money, but you get the benefit of living there. So you're offsetting that cost by living there. If you have a tenant in the property, then you're offsetting that cost by the money that you generate from the tenant living there. Okay. But if that property is vacant, you're not offsetting that cost. That is just cost that's there. Whether, even if it's a free and clear property, you still have property taxes, you still have insurance, you still have maintenance. You know, all these things still cost. Every property costs somebody something. Okay. So if you've got a property that's costing you something, but you're getting no benefit from it, think you might be interested in selling that property. And so this is the type of individuals that we're often looking for. Okay. So when I'm selecting some of the filtering criteria, one of the first things I like to select are vacant properties. So when I select vacant properties, I know that if that property is vacant, they may be interested in talking to me about selling that property. And as you see, when I selected vacant properties, that number dropped from over 10,000 to down to a little over 6,000 over here. But I still want to filter a little bit more. And so I also like to look for out-of-state owners. Further away from the property someone is, especially if it's vacant, the more likely they tend to want to sell the property. So I click out-of-state owners on here as well. Another thing that I often like to do too is I always like to put non-owner occupied. That just means that the person who owns it doesn't live there. Okay, and so that usually means that they tend to be less emotionally connected to that property, and also are usually more inclined to want to sell the property. So I like to click that as well. So when I click these three things here, as you see, this has gone back up to over 10,000 over on the side. And that's because what it's doing right now is looking for any potential leads that fit any of these criteria. What I want to do is look for any leads that fit all of these criteria. So this little button up here that says any, I want to select that to all. And as you see, that's dropped down to 191. That's a whole lot more manageable to make those phone calls to 191 than over 10,000 leads. Okay. And so that helps me out. I still want to see if there's anything else I might want to add to my filters. So I can go down here to continue to additional filters, the button on the bottom. When I click on that, one of the main things, and you can also select this based on your particular search criteria, things you may be interested in. Some people might only want to be looking for properties that are 3 bedrooms or larger. So you might want to put in at least 3 bedrooms. That might be something that you want to put in there. And you see, when I did that, it dropped it to 154. I also like to try to make sure there's at least some equity in the property. So I put in something like 35%, at least 35% equity in there. And so that dropped it down just a little bit more. So now I'm looking for vacant properties with out-of-state owners that are non-owner occupied, so they've not lived in it. This is an extra property for them, and it's got at least 3 bedrooms in it and at least 35% equity in there, and that's giving me 140 properties in the Dallas, Texas area currently. And then so once I decided this is what I want to look for here, and there's lots of different filters that you can play with this and see what kind of list that you get. Now, if you get a list that's too tiny, like let's say it only had 4 properties on here, that might be a little tight. You know, you don't want just a couple of properties. I'd say you want at least 40 or 50 properties to be looking at, and probably not any more than about 400. And, you know, anywhere from 50 to 400. That's about depending on what your call ability is, whether you're making these calls yourself, whether you got a virtual assistant that might be making these calls, or just somebody that can help you, or maybe you're just planning on, I'm gonna call a little bit every single day, because now 400 potential leads might not be that much. If you're calling every single day for the whole month, then that's only a few phone calls a day. But if you've only got 3 days in the whole month that you can make these phone calls, you might need to dwindle that down to about 70 or 80 properties that you're following up on. So it all depends on your time and your resources, okay? But once we get to a list that we like, then we can hit show results, this black button right here, and you click on that, and it will give you the list of properties that you have selected. Now, in order to manipulate these properties, we need to select them. So this button up on the left, that's right next to records, I select that, and it says 140 have been selected. And then I'm going to add them to a list. So I click on here to add them to a list. I can add to an existing list, or I can do a new list. I'm gonna do a new list here, and I'm just gonna say new Dallas, Texas list. All right, and then I confirm. And then it's going to add those to that new list. And once they've added, this button will change colors here, and then I can go to list. So once it's turned blue like it just did, I can click on go to list, and it'll take me to that list. And this is the list that you can go to here, and it's got all these properties in here. And as you see, it's got the address of the property, and it's got the owner that's on the deed on the property. So now there may be some additional information that you find out. Understand too that this is not designed to be gospel. This is designed to give you a starting point. Okay. So even for example, let's take this one here with Mr. Timothy Crawford. If I go into this property, it's going to give me some additional information on this particular lead. And so it's got Mr. Crawford's name and address on here. I can skip trace to get a possible phone number for Mr. Crawford. And down here, it gives me a little bit of information about the property. It says that it last sold in, was that March of 2022. Now, this might not necessarily be a great one because he just bought the property a year ago. And so he might either be an investor where he's doing a fix and flip on it. It may already be renovated, or he may be the owner and has moved into the property. It might not be likely that he's going to be ready to move at this time. But again, like I said, this is just to give you a place to start, because the other possibility that could be the case here is Mr. Crawford might be an investor. He might have bought this property in order to renovate it, to sell it, and mismanaged things or didn't calculate stuff right and didn't complete the renovation. This house might be sitting there partially renovated, if at all, and he might need to get rid of it because he didn't do it right. And so just because they bought it recently, it's not an automatic, it's not a definite. Goes back to that phrase again that I mentioned, it depends. And so this is just to give you a place to start, okay? You got to do more digging. You got to talk to these people. You've got to find out more information. And again, remember, you are not looking for a property for sale. You are looking for a motivated seller. There's a difference, okay? If all you're looking for is a property, there's tons of properties in every city all across the country. That doesn't mean that the seller is motivated. And the reason why you're looking for a motivated seller is because as an investor, you only buy properties in two ways. As an investor, you buy properties either at a discount, which is like a cash offer and you're going to get a discount on it, or you buy it on terms, some specialized terms, or some combination of the two. But that's it. The cash discount or on terms. There's no other. Everything else is some variation of those two things. And so as an investor, you buy at a discount or on terms. So why would somebody, if somebody has a property, they got plenty of money in the bank, the property is not a problem for them, they could sit on it, even if it's vacant and board it up. They're like, I'll wait until the market changes and then I'll do something with it. And if there's some, so I'll pay the insurance, I'll send my handyman over there and mow the lawn regularly so I don't get any code violations. You know, I'll sit on until it's worth my time to do it. Does that sound motivated to you? No. Then so even though it's a vacant, boarded up house, they could care less. They're not selling it until they're ready to sell it. They're not a motivated seller. But when you find somebody who's a motivated seller, that property is a problem for them. They need somebody to help them get that property off their plate. And that is what you are looking for, because that person will be more inclined to sell that property to you at a discount or on terms. So that is what you're looking for, is a motivated seller. So make sure you're not just running around looking for a house. It is not about the property per se, because I've done wholesale deals on properties that look fantastic, that literally needed no work done to it, because it's not about the property. It's about the seller's situation and why they need to sell that property. You're looking for a motivated seller, not for a property, okay? And so when you do this, this again is to give you information of a place to start, okay? And let's say, for example, because I've seen this happen before, in the records online, it may say that this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. But when you go out and visit the property, let's say you find out that there actually is 4 bedrooms there. Maybe they've renovated the property and maybe they didn't record the extra bedroom or things like that. Well, you can always go in and let's say you click edit here, you can go in and change it in the records to 4 bedrooms and save it. So now this only affects your records in your, it doesn't affect the database, okay? So if somebody else were to pull this up again, they're still going to see the 3-2. But on yours, whenever you pull it, you'll see that it says 4-2, okay? And so you can make notes in here. You can take photographs. And this is what I was talking to Shannon about earlier. Here where it says property photographs. You can go here. And in here, you can click on this button that says add photos. And so the first button that you see, it says get Google Street Photos. And so you can say yes. And if there are any street photos from Google that are available, it'll download those in there. So you see a sky view and a front view there on the property. But again, let's say I went to the property and this tree is hanging right here. Say this tree has fallen over and fell onto the property and there's a big hole in the front there. I might want to take a picture of that so I have an updated picture of this property. And when I go into the app, I can go here and where it says add your own photos, and I can click on here and add any photos that I want to add to this file also, so I have record of all of this information as well, okay? So all of that's available in here. Now, after you have gotten the properties in your list, you're going to want to skip trace them so you have a way to contact these folks, okay? And so there are a couple of different ways that you can skip trace it. Now, if you are a part of the partner-driven family, and Chloe will put the link in the chat for you in case you want to consider becoming a part of partner-driven, you can contact somebody and see about being a partner with us. But if you're a part of partner-driven family, you do get 1,000 free skip traces per month. So you can do some of the free skip. And now the free skip traces are light skip traces. You're normally only going to get 1 or 2 phone numbers for any lead that are available. Again, sometimes it may do a search on there and not find any phone numbers whatsoever. But it's going to give you up to 2 phone numbers per entry that you have. But you're not going to get like email addresses or anything like that. But if you are wanting to, the other thing about that is that it does take anywhere from 24 to 48 hours for those free skip trace information to come back. Now, if you've done a large list like this, that's totally fine, because it's unlikely, even if you had all of the numbers immediately, it's unlikely you're going to make 140 phone calls in one sitting. Okay, it's going to take you a little while to go through these. So the fact that it takes 24 to 48 hours for it to populate in here normally is not an issue. That's why I just recommend for our partners, when you do this, just make sure that you're going in there and regularly pulling your list so it can be pulling those free numbers for you while you're working other parts of that list or another list. Okay, but you can also do instant skip tracing, where you can go into, let's do Mr. Timothy Crawford again. We can go in here. Oh, well, let me do it from right here first. So I can select them and then go down here. Actually, I meant, where am I going? Right here. So I can do an instant skip trace right here, where you see the little icon, looks like a little person. So when I click on there, it's going to ask me, do I want to spend a third of a credit? And in order to do the instant skip tracing, it does cost you a third of a credit per entry on there. And you can buy credits in here. So I'm gonna say no right here, just so I can show you how you buy credits. And so go up here and you go to my account and then go to payment methods and credits. And when you go in here, you're going to need to make sure you have a credit card on file. And then once you have a credit card on file, you can go in and say buy credits. And this is what the credits cost. It's $1 per credit, the fewer that you get. So if you only get 10 credits, it costs you $10. And so that means that when you pay a third of a credit, it's costing you 33 cents to do a skip trace on a particular lead when you do the instant skip tracing. But if you do more, like if you do 100 skip tracing, it's only going to cost you $70. So instead of $1 per credit, it's going to cost you 70 cents per credit. So that means it's only going to cost about 20 cents or so for a skip trace on the instant skip trace. So, and the other thing about this, these paid credits here do not expire. So if it's within your budget, I always recommend to get more credits on there because they can just sit on your account and there's nothing, they're not going to go anywhere. They'll just be there until you're ready to use them. So get more credits if you can, but if your budget doesn't allow, just get a few credits on there. Now, the way I usually do it, especially when I have some of the free skip tracing as well, when I have a big list, I usually do the free skip tracing because like I said, I can't process a whole big list all at one time anyway. So I do the free skip tracing. But if I go out like driving for dollars and I've got 5 or 10 leads that I'm looking up, then I go ahead and pay for them and do the paid, the instant skip tracing because I want to contact them immediately. And it's only a handful of them. It'll probably cost me, you know, about $6 or something like that, if that much, to go ahead and pay to get the instant skip tracing for them. Okay. So on this one, I'll just show you what it looks like. You go here and you select it. It tells you it's going to cost you a third of a credit. I currently in my account have 26 credits sitting there. So it lets me know that I have credits available and I can use a third of a credit. I say yes. And it just lets me know that it's processing. And then it's going to go through to find the information on there. Usually this happens pretty quickly. But what you need to do in order to see the information, you're going to need to hit the refresh button in the upper right-hand corner. So when I hit refresh, you see it populated right there. So it comes in pretty quickly when you do the instant skip tracing. And so it just shows me here, I got 2 possible phone numbers for Mr. Timothy Crawford. And I can give him a call and see if he's interested in selling his property. Okay. Again, now we don't convince anybody to sell their property. We don't try to twist anybody's arm to sell at a discount or thing. What we're trying to do, like I mentioned before, is find that motivated seller. Okay. And for that motivated seller, we are there to introduce ourselves and say, listen, we offer this service. If you need to sell this property, you really, it's a problem for you, I can likely help. So let me see if I can help you. And if they say, no, I don't need your help, I don't want your help, okay, have a beautiful day and you take care. And then I just put them in my follow-up list because I'm not trying to convince. I tell people all the time, I don't drag anybody to the closing table kicking and screaming. You know, everybody needs to be on board for what we're doing. And so if they're not interested in moving forward, all right, have a wonderful day. And I move on to the next potential lead. Because as you see, even on this list, I got 140 people to call. I don't have time to be arguing with Mr. Crawford about his house, you know, on here. I want to see, are you interested? You know, are you interested in selling? Can I potentially help you out? If I can, let me see how I can help you out. If I can't, have a wonderful day. I'm going to call Mr. Crawford in about 30 days, because if the house is still for sale 30 days, maybe 30 days from now, he is interested in selling, maybe 60 days from now or 90 days from now. So just because he's not interested today doesn't mean he's not interested tomorrow. Okay. So that is how you pull your list, add pictures, do your skip tracing. All of this is available in the DealDriven app. And so, like I said, it is a phenomenal resource to have. And is something that I recommend people to use. It's a great tool to have in your investment tool belt. And I want to open it up now because I know I've made it a little tight, and I'll stay over a little bit longer just to make sure I can answer a few questions for you. So want to see if anybody has any questions about what I just covered today. Kwame, you got a quick question for us?
Yes, could you put up the link for the Android phones for the app?
Or you mean for Google Play Store?
Yes.
Okay, all you got to do is go to the Google Play Store and type DealDriven. It'll pop up. It'll be the first thing that pops up. Let me see. I'll pull it up on my phone here because I got an Android myself. And I will double check it right here for you to show you exactly. Yep, it goes DealDriven app is how it shows, the DealDriven Real Estate Invest. So if you go to the Google Play Store, I don't know if you can, no, there you go. You can see it right there. Google Play Store, and you type DealDriven, it'll show right there. It'll say DealDriven Real Estate Investing app, and you just install it. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Absolutely, absolutely. And if you want to find out more about potentially joining with PartnerDriven, now PartnerDriven, we have a lot of extra things. People that are part of PartnerDriven, you also have us as partners. So let's say you find a deal that is, if the numbers work great and it's potentially a good fix and flip. Any of you that have already done some real estate investing, a lot of times you will see that, or you already know, you got to come up some way. Unless you got the money sitting in the bank account, you either got to go try to raise private money, or you got to do hard money lending, which I think the reason why they call it hard money is because it's hard on you on the fees and stuff that they charge on hard money lending. And so a lot of these different fees and the cost of money sometimes can make the deal not so much a deal. And so we will partner with you. And so we'll partner with you and help you do the renovation and split the profits 50-50. And so a lot of people go and join PartnerDriven with us, and you can click on the links that Chloe has put in the chat box there if you're interested in becoming a partner with us. But I also want to make sure I answer these last few questions. But let me go to my lovely colleague here, Chloe. You got a comment to make to the group here?
It's actually to you. I just want to let you know it's storming really bad here, and
Okay.
power's flickering. So if it disappears, that's why.
Gotcha. Thank you for the update. Yeah, there is a storm passing here, heading towards the East Coast here. I know a lot of my friends and stuff that are a little further north of us here in Atlanta are getting some heavy storms. We're supposed to get some heavy storms coming through over the evening. So you guys just be safe out there. And it goes to everybody on the call here. But let me go ahead and go to Abner. Abner, you've got a question for us?
Yeah, how you doing? Thank you for the opportunity. So I was looking into the app that you have an option to look for cash buyers.
Yes.
When you how do you use that feature? Because I noticed so you do get the names and the addresses of the cash buyers, but how if I find a deal that it's a good deal, and then I put them into contract and everything, how do I go about sending this deal to cash buyers?
Great question. You are absolutely correct with the cash buyer, and we are looking to try to tweak that feature a little bit to try to be able to offer skip tracing on our cash buyers. Currently, we do not have that available. However, there's a little bit of a one of our partners. It's a gentleman. His name is Haskell. And so we've referred to this as the Haskell hack, and because he was the first one that recommended this to everybody in the community who were trying to look up information on the cash buyers. When you find the cash buyers, you see that it gives you name and address for that individual. What he recommended was taking that address and doing a search like you would on any property for that address. And then so when you go and do a search for that address, now you've got a address contact, just like if you were doing driving for dollars and things like that. And once you have an entry, just like the one with Mr. Tim Crawford on there, that's his address. Now, he doesn't necessarily live there, but that's an address of a property that he's associated with. And then so once I got that address, now I can skip trace that because I've got an entry on an actual property. And that phone number would likely be that person's phone number. And then you can give them a call. So that's kind of a roundabout way of still trying to find out contact information for that individual. Okay. There's also items that you can do. You can, if you got the person's name, there's some free services like True People Search that you can put their name in and potentially find a phone number. I also like using a site called Ben Verified. I'll put it in the verified. BenVerified.com. Ben Verified is a paid service. So that is something that you have to pay to subscribe to. But I really like the results that Ben Verified gives me with some individual skip tracing. Ben Verified is excellent for looking up individual phone numbers. You do not use Ben Verified for batch thing. Like if you're trying to do a large skip tracing for a lot of names, Ben Verified is not what you want. But if you're looking for that one individual and some information, the big thing I like about Ben Verified is that it also often gives you information of like neighbors and associates, other family members. So sometimes you can bounce through it and find contacts of contacts in order to try to get a hold of the individual that you need to get a hold of. Okay. And so but True People Search is free. You don't have to pay for that one. So that's one I know a lot of investors recommend too. So you can always just plug the name in and see if you can find a number for that way. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Abner. Shannon, you got another quick question for us?
Okay, I'm unmuting. So I was putting my questions in the chat as we're going, and I know you're busy, so you can't always see them. So I'm going to go back up. That way I remember questions I had as you were showing us things. So when you say 40 to 500 leads, are you saying to per month? Like, you know, how often? Yeah.
Again, it goes back to what you're capable of doing. So if you are able to really go through leads and process them and make these calls a lot, then you can do a bigger amount. But if you can't do that many, you may do a smaller amount. You may only do 20 per month, you know, because I don't know what your schedule is. If you're working a 9 to 5 and you got family, you got kids that are in events and things like that, you might not have a whole lot of time. So you may only be making a couple of phone calls, you know, a week, you know, and so, but you got to be consistent and make these phone calls and do it, because it's the consistency that really makes a difference. I would rather you make 2 phone calls a day, every single day, than to wait for this magical day of the month that you're going to have this free time and have all this time available that you're going to sit down for 6 hours and make all this, because more than likely that day is never going to arrive. And then you'll end up finding out it's been 6 weeks and you haven't made a single phone call. But if you do a couple of calls every single day, at the end of the month, you've made at least 60 phone calls. And so, and then the next month you made another 60 phone calls. And so you end up building up a pipeline of calls that you have made, and you're more likely to come across this, the situation where someone needs to sell their property. So as far as the number, the actual number, that really is boiled down to you and what your availability is. But I think you also had a question in the chat asking about the 1,000 free skip tracing for our partners. That is per calendar month. So when it gets close to the end of the month, I always tell people, if it's the last week of the month and you haven't pulled, you know, haven't reached your 1,000 quota, go ahead and pull some leads, even if it's not ones that you're going to call right off. Pull them, because they do expire each calendar month. At the beginning of the month, first day of the next month. So we're in January right now. First day of February, your free skip trace goes back to 1,000, wherever it was. You may have been still had 600 left for January. That's gone. It's use or lose. Okay. So, but it is 1,000 free skips per month.
First of the month, that like before, so like the last day of the previous month, do whatever, use your 1,000 free leads.
And I would also say, do it a few days ahead of time, because even though you requested the free skip, I told you before, it takes 24 to 48 hours for them to come back. If it registers that it found it on the next day, even though you initially pulled it on January 31st, it's going to end up counting out of your 1,000 in February. So don't wait to the last second on it. You know, give yourself a few days so these things can be kicking back some before the beginning of the next month.
Perfect. Good to know. And then you went to the Google Street Photos. Does that cost extra? Is that a charge to pull those up, or can you just pull them up?
As far as I know, you can just pull them up. That is one that I'm not 100% sure, because I do know that we changed a few of the features when it came to the Google. So I think it is available, but if it's not that big of a deal, because I never really use the Google Photos, and I can look on Google and look up the Google Photos if I have to. I use the photos primarily because of the fact I tend to use those photos when I'm out at the property and I'm uploading my own photos, because the Google Photos don't really help you any unless you are going on an appointment to the property. Okay, but so I say that to me, I'm not 100% sure, but whether it is or not, I still would focus on putting pictures in the file of pictures that you have taken. Does that answer your question? I'll put it this way: you, especially with you, you're a partner. You can shoot a question to the support team, and they'll be able to answer that for you 100%.
Okay, now one practical question, and tell me if this is off topic too much, but you were discussing questions at the beginning about how you wholesale, and you were showing us how to search for vacant property. I have a practical question. What does that look like when you're trying to get in and see a property and you purposely are choosing out of state owners that are not in the house? How do you converse with them to get in to see the house and get pictures of it? Great question. Ask them. Because a lot of times people that are out of state owners, they either may have a lockbox on the property already. They may have a property manager, because they get in and out some kind of way. It's not just totally locked and unavailable to access just because they're out of town. And so there's been many times I've even called somebody and say, oh yeah, my neighbor has a key, so I'll let them know that you're stopping by there and they give you a key. And so there's lots of different ways, but all you gotta do is ask them. You know, that's why I said don't assume certain things about it. Just talk to them. I'm interested in the property. If I'm going to buy it, I got to see it. How do I get in there? You know, because I have had people literally tell me, the back window is open. Just climb in the back window. And so I have had that as an answer. You know, so ask them. You got to find out. You know, and I'll ask them. I said, like, nah, ain't nobody gonna shoot me if I'm coming climbing through a window. Nowhere am I. So I'm like, you need to tell your neighbors, I'm coming by there to be climbing in the window. So I just try to make sure I let people know. So you just got to ask them. Okay. So don't ask them unless they're willing to sell and you're starting to talk about what your deal is going to be. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Until you know that they're interested in moving forward, there's nothing else to do with the property. That's why I don't do any deep analysis on a property. Because sometimes people will say, well, you're going to make me an offer on the property? I said, well, I haven't even seen the property. Well, why are you calling me? Because I'm looking for properties in the area. I got to talk to people first, you know, but I'm looking at, literally, we had 140 properties on this one list we just looked at. How long would it take you to personally visit 140 properties, run analysis just to find out 139 of them aren't even interested in selling a property to you? That's a big waste of time. Okay. But to call 140 people and just find out and they say, no, okay, have a great day, move on to the next one, call it. That might take you a day or two, you know, depending on how quickly you can call. It may take you a month. It may take you longer, but it depends on how quickly you can make the phone call. But that's a whole lot easier than hopping in your car, driving all over the town to look at all these properties. Okay. So you want to find out the interest first. Once they say, yes, I'm interested in hearing more about, that's when you start digging more into it. Make sense? Probably, yes. So probably you're asking questions about what they have in mind. And if it sounds like it might be workable, then you're saying, hey, if I'm going to make you an offer on the property, I do need to get in there and see it. and from there.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Stephan.
You got it. You nailed it right on the head. All right, Shannon, thank you so much. Renee, what you got for us? Renee, you there? Going once, going twice. All right, Renee, feel free to raise your hand again if you still have a question. All right, I'm going to go to Kalani and Anthony. What do you have for us, Kalani?
Good afternoon. I want to first say this is the easiest explanation of wholesaling that I've ever gotten in my 43 years of living on Earth. So thank you. So once I find a property, are you gonna buy it, or do you have a list? I kind of got cut off internet wise. Do you have a list of people who want to buy?
Great question. It's a few different things. Partner Driven focuses primarily on wholesaling and fix and flips. We have just recently added an extension on some creative things that we're just starting to test out to do some creative. But in general, the bread and butter is wholesaling and fix and flips. Now, just like I mentioned when I gave the explanation of wholesaling, we do not buy a property when we're wholesaling it. We are basically transferring that over to the end buyer who is going to buy it. Okay, so on a wholesale deal, we are not buying that property. Now, again, like I mentioned before, when I said it depends, okay? And the only reason I say this is because there's a kind of a slight little additional explanation. Let's say we're doing a wholesale deal, everything is working out on it. We've got it under contract. We found an end buyer. They're going to buy it from us and everything. Everything's good to go. We got a closing date and everything. But on that particular deal, we might be in a state where we can't do an assignment, where we mean we can just pass it on. So we may actually have to close on that property and then sell it. Now, all of this happens on the exact same day. It's kind of like all boom, boom, boom. It all happens all at once. But in essence, we still come up with the money to close on it, and then we go and resell it to the end buyer. In that particular instance, technically, we are buying the property, but it's a day of transaction. Okay, and so we do have the funds available to do that. But as a general rule, wholesaling, we do not buy the property. But if it's a fix and flip, then of course we are buying the property because we got to buy it to do the renovations and things like that. And then we move forward with it to sell it. That makes sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
All right. I got ATL Black 1962. I don't have a name.
Yeah, Eddie.
Eddie, how's it going, Eddie?
All right. I have a question now. When we do these mailers, right? When we do select them and they go out, do they go out like regular mail? But I know it takes probably time to process because it has your personal phone number on there, whatever you prefer. So what is the average time frame does it take to get that out?
And you're talking about doing the mailers through the app, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Great question. What my experience has been is it usually takes about 4 or 5 business days to go out. And that's just the general mailing, because it doesn't take once they get it, they process it pretty quickly. And I'd say it takes 2 or 3 days to get the mailers ready, and then they're going to mail them out shortly after that. So I'd say 4 or 5 business days. And I always like to specify business days because if it's a holiday or if it's a weekend, that may slow it down a little bit.
Got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Donald Washington, what you got for me, buddy?
Yeah. Hello, Stephen. So I've been playing around with the app for a little bit, ran with that there for a little bit. And, I'm slowly but surely getting used to it, but I know I've been trying to put in a list from vacants and foreclosures. But in terms of foreclosures, are there any easy button for foreclosures so I could put in a very effective list with motivation?
Gotcha. Great question. We do have pre-foreclosures as an option on there. And so I'll share the screen again real quick just so you can see. And let me go here. Let me go back. And back. Oops. Let me Clear search. All right. Right here, pre-foreclosure. So you can always click, and these are going to be people who have received notice of default already. So you know that they're heading to pre-foreclosure. They may not necessarily have an auction date already set, but they're in trouble, you know. And so that is an option to add that to your search filter. Now, there's two things about that. As a general rule, we normally do not like to wholesale pre-foreclosures. Doesn't mean we don't do it, and I'll give you an exception to it in a second. But as a general rule, we don't want to wholesale pre-foreclosures. And the main reason behind that is because, as I mentioned before, the entire transaction on a wholesale deal is dependent upon us finding an end buyer. Okay. And so let's say, for example, we go under contract with this person to buy the property. Now we're marketing it to try to find an end buyer, and we can't find an end buyer. Maybe they owe too much on it. We can't get it at a decent price, and we can't sell it. Okay. We don't want to end up tying up somebody's property for 30 days or more on a wholesale deal just to terminate the contract when they're facing an auction that's coming up. And so now we terminate the contract, and they got 2 weeks before their house is about to be auctioned off, and they were counting on us to buy the property. And so now we've put them in a worse situation than they were in before they met us. That's not, to put it easy, that's not very nice. You know, we don't want to people's situations, okay? And so because of the fact that there's a little bit of iffiness when it comes to a wholesale deal, we don't like to do wholesale deals with people that are in pre-foreclosure. Now, some of the exceptions, a lot of it depends on, have they already gotten a notice for auction date? Because if they don't have an auction date yet, then they probably got a little bit of time before it's going to be foreclosed. We have done a couple of wholesale deals where the people have just gotten their notice of default, but they haven't had an auction date, so they had time. Also, we've had a couple of that we've done where people did have an auction date, but the auction date was a good little bit away. It was like 90 days from there. So we were like, we can spend 30 days to try to see if we can do something with this, and it's not really going to impact them that much, you know. And usually we still don't try to just drag it out. If we don't find somebody pretty quickly, we're gonna say, okay, this doesn't look like it's gonna fit, and we try to get out of their way so they can look at other options, you know, before their auction date comes around the corner. Okay, so but as a general rule, we try not to wholesale auction date. Now, fix and flips are a whole different story. If the numbers work for a fix and flip, we're going to be buying the property, so we're going to buy it, and it's going to stop it from going to auction anyway. So fix and flips are fine when it comes to pre-foreclosure as long as the numbers work. Okay. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. So basically, go for the tired landlords and the vacants and all that stuff. And also,
yeah, especially if you're focusing on wholesaling, those tend to be the best motivated people.
Okay. And also for pre-foreclosures, just avoid the ones with no auction dates. Or no, just with notice.
Too close of an auction date. If their auction date is right around the corner, it's not going to be a whole lot that we can do. Or unless it's like just a steal and it's something that we could do as a fix and flip. Because then we can just buy it, and then we're going to do the renovations and stuff anyway. So we stop the foreclosure.
So in terms of notice the default. If it's like 30 or 60 days away, then we're
more likely to be able to do something with it. Yeah.
Oh, okay, but
again, it all depends on the numbers. You know, if they owe way too much on it, we still might not be able to do anything with it. But if it's the prices, the numbers are good, then yeah, we'll pursue it.
Okay, well, so if you have a good, robust buyers list, still go after it, or what's up?
Well, the better your buyers list and the more diverse your buyers list is, the more options it gives you. Because I've got, like I said, with doing this for a while, I've got lots of different buyers that like different things. They like different areas of town. You know, I had a deal that I was just working on where a couple of other buyers were interested in the property, but they couldn't get a lender to because they were looking for hard money lenders, and they couldn't get a lender to financially back them on the deal. But I found another guy who was from that area. And so he was like, because it's a area that's being gentrified, but it's just starting to be looked at to be gentrified. It hadn't really been touched yet. And so a lot of people don't want to go. They don't want to be the first one in there because they don't know if stuff is going to sell, if people are actually going to move there and things like that. But this particular investor, he's from the area, and he said, I've done some other deals in this area. I've already got some financial backers. And so he was willing to go after it because of the fact that he said, I know people over there. So everybody's got their different resources. That's just like even when I told you guys, when you're looking at what you might choose to do, everybody's got a different story. They got their different resources, their different capabilities, different connections. So if you got a robust buyers list, like he said, and there's some different, it doesn't ever hurt to check it. All I suggest is that whether you're doing it with us or you're doing it on your own, speed is the key. Okay.
Course, yeah, definitely.
If you can move on it, what does it really hurt if you get it under contract and check it for the first 7 days, and just see if any of your buyers are interested in it?
Oh, definitely.
7 days is not really going to hurt anybody in the grand scheme of things, usually. So you can check it. If nobody is biting at it to say, yes, Donald, I'll buy that one from you, then terminate the contract. Tell them you want to get out there. Let the seller know you're trying to help them. I'm going to get out of your way so you can look at other options there, but because it doesn't look like it's really going to be a great fit for me. Okay.
What about tax delinquencies? Like, is that a good one too?
Tax delinquent sales are the same. That tends to be high motivation. In that, again, you still got to make sure the numbers work. Depending on what they owe in back taxes and stuff like that, that could end up killing the deal. But from a motivation standpoint, tax delinquent individuals are also very highly motivated.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. You're very welcome. All right. iPhone Donovan, what you got for me, buddy?
I got a question. Hey, how you doing, Stephan? First of all,
doing great.
Like say for instance and stuff and all, like when you turn around doing your numbers and all that stuff, right? Do you have to go to a title company to find out if there's any hidden debts on that property?
Well, you're going to do that in the course of closing on the transaction. You don't have to do that up front, but that is going to eventually, because you're not going to be able to close on the property for the transaction, whether you're wholesaling or doing a fix and flip. That's going to be when you're doing the title search towards the end of it. Again, over 10 years of investing, I've got tons of stories. I could be on here all day long telling stories. But there was a property here in Atlanta. This woman bought the property through an auction and didn't realize that there was a lien that was on the property that stayed attached to the property that she wasn't aware of. And she was selling me the property. This was pretty much a tear down on the property. She was selling me the property for $15,000 on there. And so I had it under contract for 15 grand. I was selling it to an investor for 25, and everything was good to go. We were going to close it, but during the title search, found out that there was a $100,000 lien on the property that the seller didn't even know was in existence. Didn't even know it was there. So it killed the deal. We weren't able to do anything. She had to go through various legal actions with the auction company that she was dealing with to try to work out something with it. It took her several years. I never knew anything about it. She did something different with the property by the time she was able to get all of that straight. But that was something that came up during the title search. So it happens sometimes. That's why I tell people, don't fall in love with a deal. You should have several deals that you're working on. Ideally, at any given point, you should be having several deals that you're working on. That way, any one deal, if a deal falls out, it's unfortunate, but it happens. And it's not a big deal, because if you got 5 deals you're working on, 2 of them don't close, but the other 3 do, and all of this is in the course of a week or two, are you really in tears over the other 2 that didn't? Because you got 3 that did close, and you got $20, $30, $40,000 in your pocket. And so it happens, and you may still be able to do something with those other 2 at a later time. So, but the title stuff, it happens. It's going to happen once you're going to the closing office. Unless you are the actual investor who is going to buy it to close on it, there's no reason for you to do any type of title search. You just make the assumption that everything is fine. You keep on going, but understand that something could come up when it comes to before the closing.
Okay, and then there was one other question. Like last week, they was talking about like when you turn around and get your cash buyer, I mean like your cash buyer on the back end, in order to turn around and make sure that they don't turn around and just like back out of the deal just because, to make sure that they have the money and all that to get earnest money. Do you have to put them underneath contract with the earnest money and all of what?
Yes. Yes,
earnest
you go
money
into
is not
contract with
refundable?
them. You lock that up. Here's what you do. On the buy side of the transaction, you want as much time as possible. On the sell side of the transaction, you want to give them as little time as possible. Now, not unreasonably little, but as little time as possible. Again, I can tell you another story here. There was a deal I did just last year where the deal fell through and I wasn't able to complete the deal, but I still ended up making $5,000 on the deal. And what happened was I only had to put down $1,000 earnest money on the deal for my buy with the seller. And they'd agreed to let me put down $1,000 earnest money, but they gave me like 10 business days for due diligence. So I had almost 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks of due diligence. I was able to find this end buyer within about 3 or 4 days. They came on, I made them put down $6,000 in earnest money on the deal. And I gave them 5 days due diligence. And so at the end of the time, the due diligence expired on both my contract and the seller's contract, but the seller had something come up, like a financial issue that had nothing to do with this transaction. And they said that they were going to have to back out of the transaction because now their money was different. This all happened before we were able to close, and they didn't feel comfortable with it, and they were going to have to back out of the transaction. So they ended up forfeiting the $6,000 in earnest money, which meant they left me on the hook. So I couldn't close on the deal with the original seller, but I was only on the hook with them for $1,000 earnest money. So I collected the $6,000 on my earnest money, paid them the $1,000 in their earnest money. I still made $5,000 on a deal that I didn't even close.
Okay, but make sure that you have a contract with the seller.
If you were doing it correctly with wholesaling, it should cost you little to no money down, and it should be little to no risk at all. That's why I love wholesaling. I even have wording in my contract that give me an easy out so I don't have to worry about time deadlines and things like that, bleeding over and accidentally going over due diligence periods and stuff and owing people money. So it's about protecting yourself. Wholesaling tends to be the closest to risk-free investing that you can do if you do it properly. Okay. But I've met people that have lost money doing wholesaling too. If you don't do it right, you can still cost yourself money. Okay. But if you protect yourself right, then you're in good shape with the wholesaling. Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Renee, what you got for us?
Hello. I almost feel like we're really not going to have time for this, but last week, Julie was here and we were going over a deal that I was planning to call on. And I thought I had my comparable, but I noticed that I didn't go and change the time, the length of the comparable. It was at 18 months and I dropped it down to 6. Then I dropped it down to 3 months. And at that point, I found that I actually didn't have a comparable. So I wanted to try to go over a deal to get it analyzed as far as the ARV, get down to that cost. And I think it's going to be considered the maximum allowable offer, because I want to make sure that I understand how to put my assignment fee in there. And I also want to make sure I understand my focus is going to be with the pre-foreclosures to make sure that. Are you a
partner with us, or are you just using the DealDriven app?
I signed up for the course.
Okay.
And I just purchased the app, and my expiration for the trial just ran out today. So
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Does that answer? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that answers my question.
Okay. All right. I'm still learning, so my dialogue is increasing.
No problem at all.
All right. If I could, if we have enough time, I mean, maybe we can do this next week. I don't know, but I really want to try to call these people this weekend, but I really want to understand how to make sure that not only I get paid, the buyer is going to have a nice cushion on the end. I've actually did.
Well, let me just ask you this. How are you? Okay, we don't even have to go through a deal. We can do some examples just to make sure we've got numbers.
Okay.
That makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
So let's make some assumptions here. Let's say you've got a property and the seller wants $100,000 for the property. Make it easy. Okay. And then you looked it up and saw that the ARV on the property, and for anybody who's not familiar with the terminology, ARV is after repair value. The easiest way to think of it is when this property is in its best condition, it's been fully renovated and it's in its best condition, what should this property sell for?
Right.
Okay. And so let's say that it'll sell for $250. Okay. And repairs on the property that you're looking at, have you come up with an estimate of the repairs?
30,000.
30,000. Let's use that for this one. Let's just say 30,000 in repairs. All right. So now, even before I use these numbers, on the one that you're looking at, did you have a ARV that you had for that particular property?
Yeah,
That's
it was
what
pretty.
you're trying to determine.
Yeah,
Go
it
ahead.
was pretty. It's a fairly 1992 is when it was built. It looks
Okay.
pretty good. I'm sure there's going to be a new roof, but my basic start on the ARV probably very cosmetic. You know, kitchen, maybe some door handles and stuff like that. So I figured conservatively I could go up, but I want to start at like 30 plus whatever that cost.
No.
So maybe
That's the repair. That's the repairs.
yeah.
I want to know what the ARV. What do you think it would sell for once it's been fully renovated?
Okay,
The
so
property that you're looking at.
yeah, so it looks like it has like that valuation, a high and a low. The high I wouldn't go with because I don't see anything else in the neighborhood. So the low would be like 513.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna change up something for you here. And this is something of what I do, and matter of fact, I'm gonna kill this. And sure, I'm going to do one other thing real quick for you. On these properties, we'll do this one here again. What you're talking about is the valuation that's in here.
Right.
This valuation can be very good, but it can also be a little confusing. Okay.
Right.
I personally use this information that DealDriven has, but I use it to confirm what I'm already calculating. Okay.
Right.
And so I don't use it as my number. Just like I don't use the Zillow estimate, even though the DealDriven numbers are much better than the Zillow estimate and things like that. But I do calculate. The main reason is I trust myself more than I trust a computer. Okay. What I mean by that is there are two types of comps that you are normally looking for. There are as-is comps and there are ARV comps. Okay. So if I've got a house in a neighborhood and I tell you, what do you think that house would sell for once it's been fully renovated? And you find 6 properties in a short distance of that house that are similar to that property that have sold within the past 3 months. And I told you the lowest price one sold for $100,000 and the highest price one sold for $300,000. What's the ARV on the property? The answer is you have no clue.
Right.
Okay. because the reason is because you need more information. Okay. Because there are only 2 types of properties that sell. There's a property that sells that needs work, and there's a property that sells that doesn't need work.
Right.
That's it. Okay. The ones that don't need work are basically your ARV comps. Okay. So you want to look at properties that have already either been renovated or in really, really, really good shape when you're calculating the ARV. When you're looking at as-is properties or ones that have not been renovated, then these are ones that are your as-is comps. They're the ones that are more comparable. If your property needs work, then these properties, whatever they sold for, are likely going to be about what you can expect to sell this property for in its current condition. Okay. Now, when I calculate an ARV, once I do that, then I might look at this evaluation to see where it fits in this, to see if it is close to the same thing. So I use this more for a confirmation than for my initial number. Make sense? So And here's what I say. So when you're looking at property, and this is one fault that I will give the DealDriven app. Okay. The problem with the DealDriven app is when you pull the comps, it doesn't show you pictures. At least currently, I think they're working on that to give you pictures on the comps.
Right.
And the reason why that's an issue is because, like I just said, when you're looking at comps, I don't know what condition the property is unless I can see pictures of the property. I don't know if this was sold and it needed work or if it was sold and it was in great shape. The only way I can do that is either to see pictures or to visit the property.
I mean, I use Zillow to kind of figure out.
Bingo. I
things.
use Zillow too.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones I use Zillow, Redfin, and Realtor.com.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure I was on the right path with that. So I got a good ballpark of, you know, trying to find like that initial visual just to see if I'm on the right track. And I feel comfortable with that, but I still get stuck on how to calculate, make sure I walk away. I want to walk away with the 10 grand in my pocket, but I also want to walk away with the, you know, the homeowner getting way more than that if possible. And then make sure I have that nice window for the seller or the buyer to be able to make sure they take care of their repair. Because I just want to flip it. I don't want to hold it. I just want to put it in contracts and transfer the equity.
Yeah. So you're basically wholesaling it on there. And there's two ways for you to do that.
Okay.
One, you can use a formula. And there's lots of different people that use formula. One of the main formulas people will use is like, they'll take whatever the ARV is that you figure out. So like that example I was doing with the general numbers.
Right.
So you do 250 as you take that ARV, multiply it by like 70% or 65%, whatever your local market kind of dictates, and then subtract the repairs. And that number should be your maximum allowable offer.
Okay.
That discount that you use, that 65 to 70% discount on the ARV, kind of encompasses your profit, your fees, it kind of is everything involved in that. And then you subtract out the repairs, and that number should be the maximum you should pay for that property. Okay. That's one way to do it. The other way that you can do it is to build your cash buyers list. Okay. When you build the cash buyers who are going to be the ones that are likely going to purchase these properties from you, you can find out what they pay for properties. Because let's say you do that calculation and that calculation says the most you can pay for that property is $120,000.
Right.
But you've got an investor that would pay you $160,000 on a property just like that in a heartbeat. If they've done a ton of properties in that general area. Well, if you're saying you're just trying to make 10 grand, that means you could offer $150,000 instead of offering $120,000.
Okay.
So you think your seller might be more interested in accepting an offer at 150 than at 120?
Right.
You know, so it all depends on what your buyer will pay. Because remember, at the end of the day, we got to sell these properties. We are not out here just collecting properties. We're getting properties under contract for the purpose of reselling.
Right.
Whether you're doing
do
a fix and flip
understand
or a
that.
wholesale. So what can you sell it for?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, making the money on it. So if you can sell it for this price and you want $10,000, drop $10,000 off that price, and that's the most you can pay for that property.
And when we do these transactions, I mean, like I'm looking at the information on the DealDriven where it shows how much they're in debt for. As long as they're covering their costs and they're stopping their
correct
bankruptcy, it's a good deal for them. Even if at minimum they walk away, I get 5 and they get 10, they would be happy, right?
Well, it depends on the person.
It depends on the person, but some people can walk away with 0 and damage credit for 7 years.
Because again, go back to what I said before.
Okay.
It's about motivation.
Right.
Okay. If they need this property off their plate, they could care less if they make any money. I've known there was one time this lady wanted to sell me a property for $1.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Because she needed this property off of her. She's like, I got to be done with this. I need it out of my name.
I got you.
And so it depends.
Yeah.
So what is their motivation?
Right. My goal is to help them walk away with something and, you know, be able to rebuild. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Don't focus too much on that. I got you.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let's see if we can knock out a few more questions here and wrap this up. We're well over time, but I really want to try to make sure I'm here to answer questions for you guys. And so we're going to go to Maria. What you got for us real quick?
Hi, thank you so much. I really appreciate what you're doing. And this is very interesting. I had a question, and that is the 7-day trial period. Is that you have access to all the features of the program?
You have all the features of the app, the DealDriven app, during that 7-day trial period. Yes.
Okay, it's the app. It's not.
Not the partner-driven program. No.
Okay.
Okay.
But the app, is that also that you can have it on the computer, or is it on?
You can have it on your computer and on your phone.
Okay, I will try that. Now, the partner-driven, do you also do commercial properties or multi-units?
No, ma'am. We do not do commercial. We only do residential, which is up to 4 units. Anything 4 units or below is considered residential. Once you get to 5 units and above, that's considered commercial.
Okay, yeah, because I have a 46 unit, so that will not work for this one. But I have 10 rentals. But do you only do wholesale, or do you also have?
We do wholesaling and we do fix and flips.
Okay. All right, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the question.
Thanks.
Shannon, you got another real quick question for us?
Hi, Stephan. Just a second. Okay, I'm on actually. You're popular. So that example you gave answering another question about earnest money, I was like, I'm going back to that. How did that work? So who puts down earnest money on a deal? Help me understand. Like you said, there's 5,000, 6,000, 1,000, and you ended up making 5.
Now that particular deal I did, that was my deal that I did on my own, because I have my own wholesaling business outside of partner driven. And this was one that I did. Now, if you're working through partner driven takes care of all the financial risk. So if there's any earnest money that needs to be put down and you're a partner with us, and partner driven covers that. But if you're doing this independently, then in general, I normally try not to come out of pocket any earnest money, because even in that deal, I didn't physically go and pay $1,000 to escrow account in attorney. It's just in the contract. Okay, but the contract still has deadlines and dates and stuff in it. And when it reached that deadline, once you pass a certain amount, I owe them that money. And if I didn't pay them that money, they could sue me for that money. Now it's going to cost them a whole lot more money to sue me and stuff, but it's a big headache all around. None of us want that. So you want to be a person of integrity. If you've got something in the contract, this is what you're honoring, be true to your word and honor the contract. Okay. But in that, the contract stated that after a certain period of time, I owed that seller $1,000 if I didn't complete that contract. Okay. But I had a contract with the person that was buying from me. And I said, after a certain time, you owe me $6,000 if you don't honor this contract. Okay. And I always try to make sure that the due diligence period for my end buyer is shorter than my time for them. Because what I don't want to have happen is I don't want my due diligence to run out on me and not run out on them. And then they back out before their due diligence runs out. Now I'm on the hook for $1,000, but I'm not on the hook, or they're not on the hook to pay me. So I want their due diligence to run out before mine does. Okay. Yeah, so if it happens, then I still am covered.
Okay. So all of the earnest money is on the buyer side. There's no out of money from the seller for not doing something. It's for the buyers. That's what I thought I understood.
No, right. Now, technically, if you have a signed contract, the seller does not have a legal right to back out of the contract. Now, does it happen? Yes, it happens. It's happened to me. It's happened to lots of investors. Okay. And at that point, you do have the right to sue them if you want to.
Right.
But again, do you want to? Because let's say you're going to spend all this money to get an attorney to file a suit, do all this, and at the end of the day, you win. Okay. Now, when you go collect your money? So, it's like, yeah, you won, but are you ever going to collect a dime? Are you ever going to get it? And you're out all this money to even file a lawsuit. So that's why I said I don't like to drag anybody to the closing table kicking and screaming. I want to make sure everybody's on board, everybody's fine with it. And if there's some issue there, let's talk about it. Now, sometimes it might be worth. Let's say, for example, on a deal, you had the ability to potentially make $100,000 on this particular deal for whatever reason. It's a whole lot of money. It might be worth suing, on something like that, because you might even be able to, even with winning, even if they don't have the funds to pay you, you can lock the judgment to the property. And so if that property is ever sold, you're going to collect your money once the property is sold. And so there are times when people have sued because of the seller backing out deal. I've never done it. It's never been worth it for anything that I've done. And like I said, I've let people out of contracts that they have every legal right to move forward on it. Because again, it's not worth the headache. There's other deals out there. And so I'd rather have the drama-free life and spend time with my lovely wife and have good times than fighting and arguing and going over stuff when I can just go find another deal.
Well, that's one of the great things about partner driven is you can do the deal with them, but you can also learn with them and do some on your own. So I appreciate also the insight of what you're doing on your own. So you're not putting earnest money at the title company right away. You've got it written in your contract. That comes later. And you also have an out in your contract that you really aren't going to end up paying earnest money if you're not completely, like backing out, not doing the diligence, because you could pretty much get out for like any and every reason, Yep.
I try to make it as simple and as easy as possible, but I do, because of the fact I know that I'm covered, I can get out of it pretty easily. My big thing for the seller is I try to operate as quickly as possible. I don't want to waste people's time. I don't want to tie up somebody's property for a month and 2 months or 3 months or something like that, knowing that it's unlikely that I'm going to be able to move forward. That's not good karma, in my opinion. I try to move as quickly as possible, see what I can do. If I can't do anything, I'm getting out of their way so they can go find another option and possibly solve their problem. Okay.
So what about your end buyer that had the 6,000 down? Are they putting that in the title company right away?
Usually I have that in there that it needs to be put in escrow as soon as possible, usually like within 3 business days. And in this particular case, they had every intention to close on the property. And they were going to close on the property if they didn't have whatever financial issue that happened between when we first started and before we closed. And so they had some sort of financial hardship that came up that they were willing to, they knew they were forfeiting the 6,000 on that. But they had something, they would rather lose that 6,000 than go into this deal and be in a worse financial situation than what they were dealing with. Of course, I don't know their personal situation. They didn't tell me all the details, but they were like, it's not worth, because I'd rather count it as a loss for that 6,000 and deal with whatever I got to deal with than to, as the old phrase, throw good money after bad. And so they were like, we need to back away from this because we got something else that we got to deal with. I understood. And so they already had the 6,000 that was in escrow. So once it's in escrow, you don't have to go hunt down any money from anybody. The attorneys are going to disseminate disperse the money, and which is what they did.
So you just set up that escrow with the title company.
The closing term, once we were ready to go close, here in Atlanta, we do closing attorneys. And so all the paperwork and everything had gone to the closing attorney's office already. So when the end buyer needed to terminate it, they just let the closing attorney know that they were terminating it. And then the closing attorney says, all right, this based on the contract, this person gets this person gets that. And they left it. So I didn't even it's not like they gave me a check for 6,000 and then I cut a check for 1,000. They sent, the closing attorney's office sent me a check for 5,000. And then the closing attorney's office sent the seller a check for 1,000. And so that's what they did. They dispersed the money.
And do they charge something in that situation? Probably depends on
they charge fees to the end buyer because the end buyer was responsible for all those fees. So the end buyer paid those. So it cost them a little bit more than 6,000. It was that earnest money plus whatever fees.
They got.
But see, oftentimes when you have a cash buyer who might be doing multiple properties, they tend to like certain closing attorneys or title companies because they do a lot of business there, and that office usually gives them good pricing. They may not have even charged them anything because if they've done a lot of business with them, they might say, we're not going to charge you a fee this time. We'll make it up in the 12 to 100 or whatever other deals that we do in the future. But that's between them and the buyer. That ain't got nothing to do with me.
Okay, thanks, Stephan. Lots of learning today.
Yeah, very welcome. All right, Kalani, you got our last one for today. We were way over time, but I hope you guys have been enjoying this. I hope it's been good information. So,
yes,
Kalani, what you got for us?
Thank you. Greatly appreciated. This might be a little off topic, but I saw a house. I unfortunately was a real estate agent and I wanted to put it under contract. There was a letter that she asked me for that has, I guess, the money's involved
Proof
in
of
the
funds letter.
Ah, there you go.
Yep.
So where do I get that from? From you guys?
If you are a partner
when I
with
become
us,
a
then
partner?
we can't. Yeah, we can provide a proof of funds letter for you, no problem. It's very simple.
Oh my gosh, you just got my heart palpitating. God bless you guys for being here. I can't wait to start working with you guys.
All right. Well, make sure you call that number in there, Chloe, and put it in the I think, Chloe, if you're still there, I know you may have fallen asleep on me, you know, with all this going on. I know the storms have come through, but if you can put it back in there again, Chloe, just put it back in the chat again, the link, if you want to reach out to somebody in our office and see about becoming a partner with us. Feel free to click on there and talk to them and see. We've got lots of different options to try to set you up to get you started. We really want to make sure we do everything we possibly can to help you achieve success and to support you as much as possible. Okay. So well, that's everything, guys. Thank you again for hanging out with me. I was filling in for Julie today. She's doing some traveling. I hope she's safe out there in all this crazy weather and stuff. And I want you all to be out there. I know I even see some of you folks sitting in your cars. Be safe out there. We're here to support you guys, whether you're just using the DealDriven app or you decide to become a partner. We're all about community here. We want to do everything we possibly can to support you and achieve the success that you're looking for. So this has been great. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and we're going to move on from there. Okay. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with me today.
Thank you, Stephan.
Y'all take care now.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.